4 years ago yesterday, Tennessee hired Josh Heupel to be the next head coach at Tennessee. It's gone pretty well, Brent Hubbs, if we do say so ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, when he was hired, a lot of people thought, here's Danny White just circling back around, bringing his friends to town or whatever. And it was not great, met with great euphoria of everybody just clamoring that, they went out and broke the bank and got the guy or whatever. But when you look at where they're at 4 years later, I know there's gnashing of the teeth right now about the offense and the way that they finished in the playoff game. But to be sitting here with 2 10-win seasons and to do what they have done, Grant, considering where they came from, it's been a pretty good first 4 years for Josh Heupel. Now, there's work to be done, but to get this program from where it was the day he arrived to where it is right now has been certainly an impressive showing for Josh Heupel and his staff.
I mean, it's just nice to be relevant, honestly, because I graduated from UT in 2010. I started in this business around UT in 2012, the last year of the Dooley era, and between 2012 and the time Heupel got here, how many years, games, whatever, was Tennessee really relevant on a national level in football? There weren't very many of them. 2016 for the first half of the season, 2015 for parts of the season. That was about it. So just the change of pace. Like when the Heupel stuff was reported when he was hired, I didn't really know what to think. It's just kind of wait and see mode because Tennessee had struck out so many times before. But what he's done, just the numbers alone and the 10-win seasons and the playoff appearance and, the Orange Bowl, stuff like that, beyond anything I could have imagined the night he was hired.
Thanks a lot, Grant. You just put me in midlife crisis mode telling me that you didn't start covering the Vols until 2012. I'm better than you by a decade, and that's just sad because I don't feel that much older than you. It's the only 4-year term that caused inflation on ticket prices that you get a second 4-year term. I mean, let's call it what it is. I mean, this is been a fantastic turnaround. And don't get me wrong, they've got to figure out, the ability to win on the road. They've got to, do little things here and there in the program, but to know where they were. And Butch had a few flashes here and there, but where they were under Dooley, where they were under Jeremy, and to be kind of left with nothing. You talking about just a cupboard that there was like a nice cup, and when they pulled opened the door to the cabinet, and there was maybe a nice bowl, but like it wasn't like the fine china was all just like perfect for Josh. He was left with little to nothing, and really, you go back, I think 2021 was the fire starter for this thing. It wasn't 2022. It was 2021 where Tennessee was competitive against Ole Miss at home, won 7 games, easily could have won 8, had the game against Purdue in the Music City Bowl went their way. And I think that people were like, wow, they took that kind of ragtag group and won 7 games after, struggling the last several years. Wow, that's pretty impressive. And then who saw 2022 coming? But I think it really goes back to 2021.
You immediately had an identity. I mean, you were gonna go fast, tempo. You were gonna utilize your playmakers. Cedric Tillman became, one of the better wide receivers in the conference. Hendon Hooker emerged, of course. You ran the football very, very well with, not a whole lot of talent, at least proven talent at that point in time. So you immediately had an ID and an MO on offense, and then slowly but surely over the years, I know what was not good in 2021, but over the years the defense has come along. It's taken a little while, but you took a small step from 21 to 22. You took a step from 22 to 23, and then you took a huge step from 23 to 24. Yep. Knowing you've always been an aggressive defense with 100 TFLs 3 of those 4 years. The sack numbers outside of this year has been pretty decent. But the defense overall has kind of come along. If you're watching on YouTube, you look at the graphic up here that we're showing. I mean, that win percentage, 769. That's the last 3 seasons, top 10 in the country, 3rd in the SEC. 30 winningest 3-year or 30 wins, the winningest 3-year stretch at UT since 1998 to 2000. 3 SEC Players of the Year, 5 All-Americans, 10 wins over ranked teams. 14 all-conference honors. I mean, the list goes on and on. There's been a very successful stretch here. But kind of going back to what you were saying, Austin, like we can reference where Tennessee was when he took over the job and how much progress he has, and that's great because I think it's important to remember where context is. But Also, it's you got to continue climbing and get over that hump. I thought Tennessee took another step this year. You got to the college football playoffs. You're on that platform, and now, Grant, it's, what can you do with that? You need to be competitive in those games. You need to win on the road. You need to go to the second, third round of the college football playoffs. You got to continue to climb.
You got to host a playoff game. I think is that the next logical step. Host a playoff game and take care of business. I mean,
or
we
win
saw
the
what
conference and have a bye. Yeah,
right. Well, I mean, that seems like a much tougher task than just getting a home game in the first round. But I mean, yeah, it's the amount of ground he's covered in 4 years is pretty incredible. Now you can also say at the same time there are steps to be taken where they have to get to the next level. I mean, that's obvious, and that's what you would expect at this program because those are the expectations. They've taken a lot of steps to get back to where those expectations should be. Now it's the next step. It's hosting a playoff game. It's like Eric said. It's advancing. It's not just happy to be here. It's what's next, which is I don't know. I guess hosting a playoff game.
I mean,
there's two things for me. Sorry, Paige. Two things that I think you have to put in context with all this is, I mean, he's beaten Alabama twice.
Yep.
In 4 years. Okay, so and we all agree that there's steps to be made, but when you beat Alabama twice and you beat Florida twice in 4 years, when you think about the issues this program has had for the last 30 years with those two teams at different points in time, those two count. Those are two wins that count. And I know people will say, well, Florida's been down. Well, hey, they were down. There were stretches where they were down, and Tennessee still couldn't find a way to win that game. And same thing with Alabama. There were times Tennessee was knocking on the door and they couldn't find a way. So to win those two games in particularly to break the streak against Alabama, I think elevates kind of what Josh Heupel has also done in 4 years. I think the other thing that you learn too, AP, is it's a quarterback-driven game, right? And how much of this was sped up because of what they found with the quarterback in Hendon Hooker. I mean, I think that I'm not saying that they'll never have another quarterback like that because I don't believe that. I believe they will. But the fact that they found someone that was a perfect fit for him and for them in this system really jump-started that thing middle of the year in 21 through the 22 season that really catapulted this thing into a stratosphere in such a short period of time.
Oh, I agree. I mean, it is a quarterback-driven game. I mean, look at the NFL. I mean, that's just facts. And, I mean, college game is more like the NFL game now than it's ever been. And, you can't just roll out just an awesome defense and a great running game and win. And, I mean, the problem is for, like, even a guy like Nico, he's compared to Hendon. And that's not quite fair. Hendon was 23, 24 years old. Nico's 19. And, even if you say he's an older redshirt freshman, he would be 20. I mean, that's still 3 to 4 years difference. I mean, my kid who's a sixth grader looks a lot different than when she looked when she was a fifth grader. And I'm sure she'll look a lot different next year. Can you imagine if you're like an elite athlete, like, how much you're going to grow? And so, Hendon was absolutely the fire starter for this thing. And we'll see if Nico, and I think Nico for Tennessee to take the next step, Nico's got to make the big jump, this coming fall. But, this is, I think the most important thing is to remember where you came from, I mean, like, where were you, as Grant said, when he started covering this thing, and it was in shambles, for many, many years. And now you're at the point where you're competitive, you're beating your rivals. And that's a huge deal. Like, but here's the deal. To do what Grant was talking about, host a home playoff game, get back to the CFP, all those things, in my opinion, and as you and I've talked about this, you're going to have to do something next year that you've either not done in 20 years, which is win it in Gainesville or Tuscaloosa, or beat Georgia, which is something you've not done under Josh Heupel.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, again, everybody out there, I mean, with the exception of probably Ryan Day right now because they just won the title, everybody out there is saying you got to take another step. If you're not standing on top of the mountain at the end of the year, you got to say you got to take another step, right? Oregon's sitting there talking about the next step they've got to take. I mean, you're either getting better or you're getting worse, and I think that's the case for everybody. But what Josh Heupel's done in 4 years, Eric, is he's given Tennessee fans and put them in a position where when you're talking about getting better and next step, you're talking about playing for the national title. You're talking about advancing in the playoffs. You're not talking about getting bowl eligible. You're not talking about, man, it'd be nice to play in a New Year's Six bowl. I mean, you're talking about being, in the middle of everything from a national scene, and that's a credit to Josh Heupel and his staff. Now, you don't want the last 4 years to be a high watermark and all that kind of stuff, but where he's taken them to, as Grant said, is and the main thing is relevancy. It's fun, it's entertaining, and you're relevant. You're on the national scene. You're talked about. And that was not the case 4 years ago.
Let's do it Mount Rushmore style as we transition out of this topic. I didn't want to say one win because we'd all have the same answer, but let's go around the room. We'll do Mount Rushmore, 4 biggest wins Josh Heupel's had so far at Tennessee. Hubs, you can start.
Well, I mean, you're going to pick the Florida game and the Alabama game both in 22.
You got to pick one. Got to pick one.
Oh, I'm only picking one? Well, everybody's going to pick Alabama 22.
No. You can only pick it. Then it's off the table. Then we got to go down the list.
I stole it. Well, I'm going to take 22. I'm sorry. I totally misunderstood the question.
22 Alabama or 22 Florida?
22 Alabama.
All right, Grant.
No, AP, go ahead. You had one. Go ahead.
I'll take 24 Alabama. I mean, like, anytime you can continue the trend against the Tide, at least holding the serve at home, it's pretty big.
I'm going to take the fan favorite, the one that gets mentioned nonstop, 22 LSU.
Yeah. And then there's 2 more out there. I mean, I'm going to take the 22 Florida because, again, it's low-hanging fruit.
Keep going. Go around the room again.
You snap the streak and all that.
You only get 4 at Mount Rushmore.
If we had an honorable mention, okay, I think, and I understand, bowl games aren't what they were, but I think from a perception standpoint,
I agree.
That Orange Bowl win was just huge for Tennessee. You're coming off your best season in a decade and a half.
You're not playing with Hendon.
Yeah, you don't have Hendon. You have you're propelling yourself into the next year. Joe Milton has a great game. Squirrel White has a great game. Aaron Beasley defensively, Tennessee has a great game. I thought that win was huge as well. So I'd have that as an honorable mention.